Hello. It is June 1st, which means it is the first day of the Wastelanders Readathon. It is also 11 p.m. at night, and I haven't started any reading for the day. I've already come across a couple of snags. When I was trying to think of an initial strategy for which factions I wanted to complete in which order, my thought was that I wanted to first get through the Institute books because it has the highest page count. Then I was going to take it nice and easy and read the two novellas for the Brotherhood of Steel. Then we were going to go straight into the Minutemen, which was the one that had an audiobook involved, and then bring it all home with the Railroad. So I was all set. I had a plan. But then, of course, my plans unraveled. Nothing too dramatic, but I ended up returning Spill Zone Volume 1, and so now I'm still waiting for it in the mail, and it's June 1st, and this was the day that I was going to start reading it, so we are scrapping that plan. Instead, I am going to be starting with the faction I was planning on ending with, which is the Railroad, and includes Coyote Dog Girl and the Coven, which you'll notice here. I mean, I didn't have a physical book when I was talking about it last time. I just had a picture. But if you notice here, I have my Kindle sitting here. And that's because what I realized is that the Coven was released in 2023, like I said, but it was only released digitally. So only an audiobook or ebook exists. So I don't have a physical book to read. I was going to either buy one, or really I was trying to get it from the library. But then for some reason it was on order, and I was really confused by that. But it turns out that the release that I keep talking about in August, it is the first physical release of the book. So I'm going to be reading The Coven digitally, which no big deal in the end. It just wasn't what I was planning on. But the other cool thing is this is going to be the first time I think I'm going to try sometimes reading the ebook and then sometimes switching to the audiobook, because I was able to borrow the audiobook from my library. So I'm looking forward to getting started on both of these books. I haven't started either, and it's 11 p.m., which I know that sounds really late. And sure, yeah, relatively, I guess that's late. But I have a very strange sleep schedule. So 11 p.m., I still have like half of my day left. It's fine. Next time, I will check in with you and let you know all my thoughts on what I've read so far. Hello, it is June 2nd, yes, and which means it's the second day of the Wastelanders Readathon. And I did officially start reading for the reading challenge. And it didn't start off strong, unfortunately. I'm trying to approach the challenge faction by faction. So I decided that I want to read the books for the Railroaders first. So what that means is I started last night reading The Coven by Harper L. Woods. And right now I am 15% through it, which, yeah, sure, that's not very far. I would agree with that. But I already have opinions. It was just so instantaneous YA melodrama. And right now, at 15% in, I am already wondering if I should DNF this or not. I'm going to give it a little more time, but if it doesn't hook me in the next probably 15 more percent, I will probably ditch it and go with my second cult, Secret Society pick. I don't know. We're not there yet. I'm trying to not go down that route. I would really like to be able to, just proceed forward with this. So far, we already have the teenage angsty vampire situation going on. And in addition to that, I don't really like any of the characters so far. One of the things that I am kind of liking about this book, though, is there's only been one scene of it, but it seems to have some really interesting Earth Witch magic, and it just sounded really cool. There's all these different witch houses in this world that all have different kinds of magic and get their magic from different sources of power. So one of the main characters and all of the witches in her family get their magic from the earth. And so it's been really cool seeing some of that at play. When you first open this book, there's this very long list of trigger warnings, and I'm always really thankful for a thorough list if there is a lot of triggering stuff in a book. But even though nothing specific has happened, there's just in this very beginning part such an implication of some of the weird things that might happen. That's maybe what's contributing to me being unsure if I want to continue along with this already. Because I'm already like, I already have the ick just a little bit. And one thing that's really specific to the audiobook, because I am reading it between my e-reader and audiobook, and the thing that I'm not enjoying about I'm really conflicted about it because I am having a really hard time focusing when I'm reading the ebook, but at the same time, I really do not care for the audiobook. The voice actors are fine. I don't know if I'm not familiar with either of them. There are two voice actors for this because there is a male main character and a female main character. And so that's really cool that there are two different voice actors. But what is throwing me off is I will have just gone through a chapter listening to our main character, Willow, and listening to her voice and everything she has to say. And then we'll switch over to Gray's perspective. And in his chapter, he will then be impersonating Willow's voice, which is really jarring when you hear his approximation and what our narrator sounds like. So that is something I need to decide if it's going to bother me enough to just want to stick to the ebook, or if I can look past it, suspension of disbelief, and continue along with the ebook, because that is actually easier to digest, and I also like that it's going by a lot faster. So I don't know. That was my rocky start to this. But then later today, after I got home, I actually started reading Coyote Dog Girl, and I love this already. I am probably only about the same amount of pages in. I mean, not the same amount of pages percentage wise. This one's a little difficult because there's no page numbers on it. So I had to physically count each page. It was silly. It's just it's so pretty. There's already a lot of action. It's mostly a watercolor style for a lot of the artwork. I don't want to get too far to spoil myself. Let's see. Oh man, look at this. This is such a good page. The colors are super saturated, and I'm loving that. It's making this, I mean, as somebody that's grown up in the desert and is very used to those landscapes, I understand that a lot of people find it beautiful, and I tend to think that it just looks very brown. So I am loving this super saturated version of desert scenes. It's really appealing to me. So I'm getting this Western story without having to deal with that dry, deserty, stuff that I'm usually dealing with. So it's the desert without the brownness of the desert. From my untrained eye, what I think is the case is that this was done partially with traditional watercolor. We have pages like this right here, this plain page here, that is just a wash of watercolor. That would be an example of what I would assume is actually traditional watercolor. This page over here, I think, is usually these solid pages of the traditionally washed watercolor. It, as far as I can tell, is indicating the passage of time. But also in the artwork, there's line work, of course, but I'm seeing maybe digital watercolor and also some markers. That's my guess so far. Some sort of maybe an alcohol marker that's making it look great and blend in so perfectly. Also in this so far, there's already mentioned that Lisa Hannah Walt worked on BoJack Horseman, so I assume that there would be a little bit of similarity in there. Humor-wise, the art style does to me look pretty familiar, despite them not being an artist on the show as far as I could tell. I'm already noticing the dry humor that I would come to expect from BoJack Horseman, and also there's this awkwardness to it, and I think some of that is coming across because of a very obvious, strange lack of contractions, which I can definitely relate to in my own writing and way of speaking. So it definitely adds to the quirkiness and strangeness of the prose. Another cool thing I decided for this one is that I started reading it when I was sitting outside in my backyard, and so that inspired me. I think I'm just going to continue only reading this outside. That's my challenge for myself, because it's not very long, so I won't have to spend too much time out there, but I love it outside, as some people do, I suppose. I was going to say most people, but maybe you don't. I love spending time outside, and this will just be a nice little way to enjoy the desert in my book as I stare up into the dusty brown plains. But yeah, I will update you when I get a little bit further into both of these. I don't know if I'm going to do like a daily update, but because I was sitting here getting ready to play a new game, I decided that I wanted to update you. So I'm going to put all the candles over here. All the crayons over here. Batteries, crayon. Push, I still think that's push pins. Do I have circles? Not really. Oh, it's not push pins because this goes there. Surely. Here? Sure. Whistle. Here. Okay. Ooh, I love this. I'm loving this. This is doing something for me. Being able to move all this stuff around. I'm loving it. It is day 9 of the Wastelanders Readathon challenge, and it's been an entire week since my last update. Mostly that's because I did create an update a few days ago, but there was some issues with the video, i.e. I didn't turn the mic on, so no update there. But honestly, it's fine. I wasn't sure. I might have just scrapped that one anyway because it was so negative. It was negative because I'm still making my way through Coyote Dog Girl. I don't remember. I was just looking to see how many pages. This doesn't have page numbers. So I have been counting the pages that I'm reading in this book, and I am on page 59, which is at almost the 40% mark. And I am loving this book so much. There's such cool stuff going on in it. The main conflict is really cool. It's still holding true to what I originally thought, that there isn't really a ton of story. We're mostly relying on just really beautiful watercolor illustrations. And yet I still love it. Like, I love how overly saturated it is. I love that the desert is given such a bright, shiny look. And I don't know, I'm just like really enjoying this so far. I'm almost 40% in, and I think I'm not even going to talk about the plot of Coyote Dog Girl just yet, just because I don't want to give away too much, and I don't know how much story is going to happen in the next 60%. So I'll save like a little bit of a wrap up for when I actually complete this book. One of the fun things I'm doing with this is I have stuck to only reading this when I'm outside, which has been a lot of fun, and it feels like just the perfect setting to read a story like this, and with really good lighting and just feeling the breeze. It's just been really cool. It's been one of my favorite like side personal challenges that I've added to this readathon. It's been fun. So we're going to be doing more of that, reading more of Coyote Dog Girl in the coming weeks. I should have this done in no time. I'm savoring it. The negativity of the lost vlog update stemmed 100% from how I was feeling about my time with The Coven by Harper L. Woods. I've since completed it, and it got to the point where I was calling it a hate read. Like, I just had not the best time with it. The Coven ended up being one of those books where the synopsis sounded so much better than the actual book. Like, just based off the synopsis, you might be looking for a prestigious magical university, or like some of the language of the synopsis alludes to the condemnation, rejection of magical beings that seem to exist on the fringes of this world. The school simply exists to provide a backdrop for the main conflict. And the few students attending the school exist only to be used as cannon fodder when necessary, which is honestly perfectly fine because these characters are such paper thin cutouts that exist only to serve the main two characters, and they're all just hastily introduced and just as quickly forgotten. A more accurate blurb might be: the Coven follows Willow Mediza, a young yet powerful witch, on a journey to fulfill her life's purpose and reclaim the source of magical power that once belonged to her family. All accurate, and your expectations are exactly where they should be. I can say one positive thing about this book. I really enjoyed the magic system within the world. There are 8 main branches of magic, most of which we don't get to see in action, but hey, at least we're told about it. And within each branch, there are a handful of magical families. Our main character, Willow, is from the Mediza line, which is one of the earth magic houses. And so there are a handful of scenes where Willow is doing like this earth bending crossed with poison ivy kind of magic use, which is really cool. I really, really did like that a lot. But unfortunately, that's where my praise for this book ends. I love books with multiple points of view, but when every main character is unlikable, it's so much less enjoyable. This book is also tagged romance, and there's absolutely no romance to be found in the slightest. The insta-lust was insta-repulsive, and as many reviews you'll find online suggest, be sure to look through the very long list of trigger warnings before you get into the book, because it's possible that it just all around won't be for you. On top of all this, how the characters were behaving throughout the book and even some of the Coven's ritualistic practices were completely unbelievable. First, we have this centuries-old headmaster that is pursuing this 19 to 20-year-old, but it's also completely unbelievable because I can't recall in any other instance where an ancient being like that has any sort of common ground with somebody so young. The headmaster ends up acting like a teenager for most of the book, which is a lesser age than the main character Willow. And then there's the Coven's main ritual that is spicy just for the sake of being spicy, and it's taking place at the school. It just doesn't make any sense. It absolutely left me more grossed out and annoyed than anything else. So I don't know what we were really going for. It's the first 1-star book that I've had since 2021. So I finished 5 1-star books ever. I usually would DNF them before even getting close to the point of giving a rating. But at 2 points, both at the 20% mark and the 64% mark, I was like to the point where I was all in, ready to DNF. But for various reasons, I ended up sticking through it. I don't know if my motivation to continue going was because of the readathon. It could have been because I got an e-arc for the upcoming physical special edition release for the book, or it could have been because I was like mildly intrigued about what was actually going on. It was probably a mix of all of those. So after giving this my all-time lowest star rating, I would say that I wouldn't recommend this book to anyone. But if I had to choose, I might say that the Coven might be a good fit for you if, one, your motto is that pretty four-edge art trumps all, or if earthbending is your favorite bending art and you don't really care about romance or character development, you just want a little bit more spice in your life. So now that we've got the 1-star book out of the way, we will surely only be going upwards from here. I made it through everything. That means that once I wrap up Coyote Dog Girl, that will wrap up this particular faction's books. And I also have some updated plans for some of my picks for the Institute. Previously, I had Spill Zone by Scott Westerfeld picked out for my white cover, and I had Ocean's Godori by Elaine Yu Cho for my digital read, was the main point of that one. So what happened is when I just recently went on a trip to visit family, and I went somewhere that had a half-price books, which where I live, we don't have that, but I have lived near one in the past. So I went to just go see what they had, and I found none of the fiction books that I was looking for, but I found so many graphic novels, including Spill Zone seems like such a niche title to me that I wasn't even looking for it. I just saw it sitting there because they had it in alphabetical order by title, which is such a funny way to do it. But for graphic novels, it does make sense. You want all the Batmans near each other, right? So I saw Spill Zone. I saw another copy, the same white copy that I had ordered and kept getting damaged. And then I also found the hardcover and I fell in love with it. It's blue, so it no longer fits the Institute's white pick, but there's like this inside cover art that I just really liked, and I had to go with this one. So I'm just going to completely return the white paperback version of this and go hardback all the way. So what that meant is that I had to rethink what I'm going to read for the Institute. And so I decided to replace my white cover pick for Lock In by John Scalzi. I did order a physical copy of it from Pango Books. I'm trying Pango Books for the first time. I ordered it immediately. It hasn't been shipped yet, you're like dealing with individual sellers, and I ordered right before a weekend, so totally understandable. But I've since decided that that's probably going to be the one that I'm reading digitally. That is another thing that needs to happen, one of the quests. So I'm going to be reading Lock In, which is set in the near future, and it is a worldwide pandemic that breaks out where a small percentage of the population, they experience a condition known as lock-in, which is when the victim is fully awake and aware, but unable to respond to stimulus. A quarter century later, the world has adapted to this new way of life, and the book is following 2 FBI agents as they're solving a lock-in related murder case. It sounds really intriguing. I've had a really great time with John Scalzi in the past. I loved Old Man's War I think the only book that I've read by John Scalzi, but I love it. 5 stars. And it's a book that I would have always wanted to reread, so maybe I'll be able to do that in the near future. But I have really high hopes for Lock In. So Lock In meets the white cover now. It meets the more than 3.8 star rating on I Did Goodreads and Storygraph, and it's also less than 350 pages. And Lock In also meets that requirement for being set in the future. Without considering how I'm actually going to be reading the book, Lock In by alone checks off 4 of the quests. So I decided to rethink my second pick as well. Instead of taking on Ocean's Godori right now, I'm going to instead be reading The Cautious Traveler's Guide to the Wastelands by Sarah Brooks. Because with a title like that, I felt like I just had to read that for this readathon, right? The blurb for this one says, for fans of Piranesi and The Midnight Library, a stunning historical fantasy novel set on a grand express train about a group of passengers on a dangerous journey across a magical landscape. It sounds really cool, and it releases on the 18th of this month, so in 9 days from today. And originally I was planning on reading this book digitally and having it meet that quest, while Lock In I was going to read physically since I was ordering a physical hardback of that one. Then I got an early copy of the audiobook, and I have only listened to like essentially the equivalent of a first chapter, and it has 2 narrators, and it is so excellent. Now I really want to listen to the audiobook instead of reading the ebook. So what I might end up doing, I really want to have 2 picks for each faction. So while I could completely satisfy this with 1 book, with the Lock In alone, what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably read Lock In and The Cautious Traveler's Guide to the Wastelands half and half. So like with Lock In, I'm going to be reading it partially ebook, which is that's the quest, and partially in that physical hardcover whenever I receive it. I'll probably start Lock In sooner rather than later then. And then for The Cautious Traveler's Guide to the Wasteland, I will listen to the audiobook maybe to and from work, and then I'll listen, and then I'll read the ebook when I'm at home. So like a hybrid kind of situation. I think that's the plan. So those are all my updates. So I haven't decided. I'm thinking now that I've gone through all this explanation of my changes to the Institute, I think my plan is to start on that faction next. It has the highest page count of any faction, so it's probably good to not get it out of the way, but like while the momentum's going, save the thinner. I have the thinner books this is my second option, is to do the Brotherhood of Steel with our 2 novellas. I was thinking about starting on those, but now I think I'm going to go with the Institute. So the next update should be me talking a little bit more about my Institute picks and how those are going. And maybe we'll make some progress on Coyote Dog Girl while we're at it.